So we will look at time management today. So project time management includes the process required to manage the timely completion of the project. So we are talking about the one of the triple constraints. So we have looked at scope. Now we are looking at time. So as usual, the first process within a process group or within a knowledge area is to plan that about that process management. So we have to plan the schedule management. And what are the inputs to planning of schedule management? Project management plan, charter, EEF and OPS. The objective is to establish the policy, procedure and documentation for managing the project schedule. Tools and techniques, it is expert judgment, analytical techniques and meetings. And what we get out of this, the output is the schedule management plan. Once we plan it, then we start executing it. So the first activity that we do is to prepare a schedule, is basically to list down all the activities. So the starting point for this is our WBS. So WBS has been approved by the customer, so that has defined the scope of the project. Now for each of the work package in the WBS, we have to list down the activities that needs to be done. So it is, if it is a work package where we will create a journal entry, we have to put down all the activities. Those activities are like, we have to do development, or we have to analyze, we have to do designing, we have to do development, we have to do unit test, we have to do integration test, we have to do UAT, and we can finally say that the work is complete. We list down like this the set of activities that is required for each specific work package that is being approved in the WBS. So schedule management plan, scope baseline, which is your WBS, your EEF and OPS are your inputs, further decomposition, rolling wave planning and expert judgment are the tools and techniques. And the outputs are activity list, activity attribute and milestone list. Now rolling wave planning, we have seen here also, whatever information we have in details, we will plan the detailed activities for those. The areas where we don't know what is going to be required, those part of the activities will not be detailed out, but will be put on a summary. As and when we start knowing more, we will detail that out. And what we get a list of activities. We also get activity attributes. And what do? We also get a milestone list. Which are the milestones? Because we need to track the milestones. Once the activities are listed, then what we do is we sequence the activities. That means we try to arrange the activities in such a manner that we create those relationships. That is, which has to be done first, which has to be done after that. So we have to create those dependencies between the two. Which are the activities which can be done in parallel, which are the activities which cannot be done in parallel and requires certain activities to be complete to be able to do the next one. So schedule management plan, activity list, activity attribute, milestone list, project scope statement, EEF and OPS are the inputs. And what is the tools and techniques? The PDM or the precedence diagramming method is one of the tools. Dependency determination is a tool and technique. And we talked about leads and lags. We have seen what is lead and what is lag. And what is the output? The project schedule network diagram and the project document updates. So once we define, we sequence the activities, and here after activity list is created, they need to be logically sequenced to identify the optimal duration of the project, identify the critical path and plan resource and material of the project. And sequencing of activities can be done using manually, software and a blended approach. And we talked about multiple types of dependencies: mandatory dependency, discretionary dependency and external dependency. We said mandatory dependencies are the one which is mandatory. Logical relationship inherent in the set of activities, also called hard logic. So that means that the dependency is that some activity has to be complete before the next one to start. We have to complete the curing of the plaster before we can start on the painting of the walls. Discretionary dependency, we know that dependencies which are defined by the project team or performing organization, also called preferred logic, and these dependencies need documentation as they may impact scheduling options later on. So what it means is we create certain dependencies specifically, like we are putting carpet in a room. Now when we are putting carpet in a room, we know that we will put the carpet and then we will put the furniture. So what we do is we put 3 more days after the laying of the carpet to start putting the furnitures. Why have we put that discretionary 3 more days? Because it is monsoon time, it is raining, and the glue will not be sticking well till such for unless it is given some time. So that will allow you, that is a discretionary dependency which you have given of 3 days for the glue to stick better in a monsoon environment. An external dependency. This is dependent on the others, like you need to have approvals or sanctions of building plans before you can start building a house. We said that PDM or arrow activity on network diagram are the names of two names of the same thing. PDM or AON, precedence diagramming method, or activity on node. And it has 4 relationships: finish to start, which is the most common, start to start, finish to finish, and start to finish. Now start to finish is the least used, as it can be done very easily by a finish to start. We have also talked about lead and lag time. So lead is the overlap between tasks that have a dependency. So it is like the requirements phase, where if requirements takes 10 days and we can start the design after 5 days of completion, after 5 days of starting the requirements gathering. We don't have to wait till all the 10 days is over. That is lead time. Lag time, the delay between tasks that have a dependency. Once the activities are listed, the relationships and dependencies are created, we have found out the critical path, etc. Now we have to estimate the activity resource, because resource will actually give me the actual status of the path of the project plan. So to estimate the type and quantity of material, human resource, equipment or supplies are required, it is this estimation is done. So this is basically man, material and machine. All the 3 resources are being estimated and allocated in this project. So schedule management plan, activity list, activity attributes, resource calendars, risk register, activity cost estimate, enterprise environmental factors and operational process assets. These are all inputs. Expert judgment, alternative analysis, published estimating data and bottom-up estimating, and project management software allows you to do the work. So these are the tools and techniques. And the outputs that you receive out of this is the activity resource requirement, resource breakdown structure, and the project document updates. Then what we do is we estimate the activity duration, how much time each of the activity will take. And this is done after the resource is being assigned, is because it is the resource who should, human resource who should estimate his own time. The reason is he is the expert and he is the person who knows exactly how much time he will take to complete that work. And once he does the estimation, he will have the commitment towards it. Project manager can definitely ask questions or challenge if he feels that a task is, the estimate that is given is very high or very low. So to estimate the number of work periods needed to complete individual activities with estimated resource. So schedule management plan, activity list, attributes, activity resource requirement, resource calendar, risk register, resource breakdown structure, EEF and OPS are the inputs. Now expert judgment, analogous estimation, parametric estimation, 3-point estimation, group decision making techniques and reserve analysis are the different tools and techniques. And activity duration estimate and project document updates are the outputs. We have said analogous estimating is we look at historical data. So what we do is we see similar projects being conducted and we say that we have taken that project 200 man days, so this is a similar project, it will also take roughly 200 man days. That is analogous estimation. Then we use parametric estimation, where we use, along with analogous, that is historical data, we also use some kind of a formula. Now either it can be something like that previous project and current project are similar, however the current project is slightly more difficult than the previous one. So what you do is you add 25% to the previous project estimate and you use that as your estimate for the new project. That becomes your parametric estimate. And finally 3-point estimate. 3-point estimate is where we are taking the pessimistic, optimistic and the most common estimation and then we will divide by 6 to find out net value. So P plus 4 most likely plus O, that is pessimistic plus 4 most likely plus optimistic divided by 6 is the formula for 3-point estimation. Now group decision making technique, where we bring the people together and we discuss and we finalize or agree on a estimation. And in critical chain what we do is reserve analysis. Once all these is done, we have the activities, we have the dependencies, we have the resources, we have the estimation for each of the activities. Now we develop the schedule to analyze activity sequence, duration, resource requirement and schedule constraint to create the project schedule. Now schedule management plan, activity list, activity attributes, schedule network diagrams, activity resource requirements, resource calendars, activity scope statement, risk register, project staff statement, resource breakdown structure and EAF and OPS are your inputs. Schedule network analysis, critical path method, critical chain method, resource optimization techniques, modeling technique, schedule compression and scheduling tools are the tools and techniques. Schedule baseline, project baseline, schedule data, project calendar, project management plan update and project document update, all these becomes outputs to this develop schedule process. Any questions so far on this? And when we create a schedule and people, that schedule has to be approved and that schedule will have to be baseline for all future comparisons. So when we are trying to do a monitoring and control, we have to control the actual performance data with the planned, and this planned is the baseline. So what we do is we take the approved schedule that we have created and we baseline it. So schedule data includes collection of information for describing and controlling the schedule, at least the schedule milestones, activities, activity attributes, and documentation of all identified assumptions and constraints, resource requirements by time period, alternative schedules such as best case or worst case, and scheduling of contingency reserve. Now then we moved on to find out the critical path, and here what we said is that there is a multiple questions will come for calculating various values. Now what I have also said is that when you come to these kind of PDM or AON diagram, please first copy that diagram onto your rough sheet, because you will not be able to get back to this diagram when you have forwarded or moved forward from the current question to the next one, which will be based on the same diagram. So there will be around 4 to 5 questions on the same diagram, but in the subsequent questions you will not find the diagram. It is there only on the first diagram. Now how do we calculate that? We first do a forward pass, and in the forward pass what we do, we take the early start and early finish. So the early start for the first activity is 1 day. So as both the activities can start on the same day, we are putting 1 as the early start for both. 6 days is the duration of the task. So we add 6 to the early start and minus 1 to come to the early finish. So this task will be completed at the end of the 6th day. Similarly, for the parallel task also, we calculate and we do it as 6 plus 1 7 7 plus 1 8 minus 1 is 7. Now we go to the next task, which is B, and B task requires task A and task D to be complete. Now out of the two, the early finish date of A is 6 and D is 7. So whichever is higher will be taken, and plus 1 is added to make the early start. So 7 plus 1 8 is your early start, and then again you carry on doing this calculation where you add the task duration and you minus 1 to get the early finish. Again when you go to the early start, you add 1 and you get your early start. Now early start of a situation where there are two parallel activities and the predecessor is a only single activity. In that case, the same early start will come for both, and then again you will add the duration and you will minus 1. So 13 plus 8, 21 minus 1 is 20. So 20 becomes your early finish. Whereas 13 plus 9 is 22 minus 1 is 21. So 21 is the early start of task E. Then we go into task F. Again 20 and 21 we take the higher. So 21 plus 1, 22. So we put 22 as early start and it takes 5 days. So 22 plus 5 is 27 minus 1 is 26. Now once this forward pass is done, then we will go back and calculate the backward pass. So the first thing that we do is, whatever is the early finish of the last task, we put that as same figure as the late finish of the same task. Now we minus the number of days. So 26 minus 5 is 21 plus 1 is 22. So 22 becomes your latest start. Now 22 minus 1, 21 becomes your late finish for the previous task. That means that 21st day if you finish, then 22nd day you start the next work. So if 22nd day you are starting something, the earlier task should complete by 21st of the previous day. So 21, then again you minus 8, that is 13 plus 1, 14 becomes let's start for C. Similarly 21 minus 9 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So 13 becomes your late start. Now we go to the next one again. So out of the two, now in this particular case on a backward movement, we will take the least of the two. In forward pass, we take the higher of the two. In the backward pass, we take the lowest of the two. So 14 and 13, 13 is the lowest. So 13 minus 1, 12 becomes your late finish for task B. So 12 minus 5 is 7, 7 plus 1. So late start is 8. Again 8 minus 1 is 7. 7 is put as late finish for both 1 and for both task A and task B. So 7 minus 7 plus 1 is 1. Whereas in task A, we have 7 minus 6 is 1 plus 1, 2. So once you do that, we have completed our forward and backward pass. From this, what we can find out is, we can also find out the critical path, which is your D, B, E, F, because all the activities which have zero float are actually part of the critical path. So is this clear now? So what we said is critical path might change while tracking. So as you are progressing, certain activities may be completed in earlier, or certain activities may be completed later than what is expected. Now in both cases, mainly when we are doing a late activity, it may have effect on the critical path, where certain activity may go out of the critical path and certain activities may get into the critical path. So we need, as a project manager, to constantly check the critical path condition. Changes while change in scope of work is done, then also there is a change in the critical path. Multiple critical paths is also possible, and in exam also you might get certain questions where there are two critical paths. Changes while monitoring. Critical path changes also while monitoring, because as based on the progress. Now we talked about float or slack is the amount of time a delayed task can postpone the project completion. So there are three types of float: free float, total float, and project float. We need to understand this carefully, because and also read it carefully in the question, because based on which type of float they have asked, the results can be different. So first one is the free float, which means the total time a single activity can be delayed without affecting the early start of the successor activity. So when there are two activities in parallel, it is the time delay between the two that can be utilized, but as long as it does not affect the next activity. So that is free float. Whereas total float is the total time an activity can be delayed without affecting the project completion. So it might affect the next element, but it will not affect the overall project delay. And third is the project float, which is, we had already said earlier that when we are making a project schedule, we actually create two schedules, one for the team and one for the customer. So which necessarily means that we have given customer certain committed deadlines for the completion of the project or for deliverables. Now project float is the total time the project can be delayed without passing the customer expected completion date. So that means that as per your current requirement, you have let's say, committed that you will complete this project for a financial accounting project by 31st December 2014. Now actually internally you have decided that you will complete it on 30th November 2014. Now total float, free float is related to the 30th November 2014. So you are tracking with respect to that for all practical purposes. But you also see whether you are eating away the reserve that you have kept to meet the final completion that is committed to the customer, to ensure that you still have some buffer to play with to be able to get the project to be given on the committed date. So that is project float. So this is a network diagram calculation on an activity on node. So what we'll see is that the middle one is the activity duration, the first one is the activity start, and the right hand side is the early finish. So early start and early finish are on the left and right hand side. The middle value is your activity duration. So when you get this kind of a diagram, the first thing that you do is you first find out the different paths. Like here we see one path which is A, B, D, F. The other part is A, C, D, F. And the third path is A, C, E, and F. So there are 3 paths, and we add up these values to find out the critical path. Crashing and fast tracking. So once we create the schedule, what we do is we have to now meet the client's requirement, because sometimes, or rather most of the times, we will, once we put all the activities and the resource and everything, we might find that the committed date that is coming as per the project plan might not be an acceptable date that is there by the customer. So to meet the customer's requirement, we need to crash or fast track. Now what do we mean by crashing? In crashing, what we do is we add more resource to complete an activity. So basically here what we do is, either suppose we have 3 resources working in a project, if possible we will add 5 resources, means 2 more resources to complete all the tasks faster. Now here what is happening is we are increasing cost. Second, we might also be not able to add more resource. Suppose there are 3 programs to be written, and all the 3 programs are given to 3 programmers. Now in that case, adding another programmer will not help, because you cannot divide one program into between 2 programmers. So that is crashing. Sometimes in crashing what you also do is you change the resources. Like a less experienced resource is changed with a much more experienced resource who can develop things or who can deliver things faster because of the higher productivity. That is also possible. Here also the cost increases. And fast tracking, here what you do is you change the relationship of the activities. That means you make more activities in parallel than planned. Now certain activities which you have planned to do in sequence, you cut them into more parallel activities. Now here these parallel activities can be done, the effect is, or the risk of doing that is that you might be cutting corners and the quality of the product might get affected. So more rework might come in. So you have to be careful that you do not cut corners but utilize whatever float is available to the maximum extent for fast tracking. So these are the two methods of reducing the overall project span. So resource leveling, start and finish dates are adjusted based on resource constraints. So used when critical resources are shared. So you need a specific user experience expert, and you need that user experience expert to go through the your user interfaces and give his or her comments or suggestions. Now after that only you will be able to finalize the design of the user interface. Now if that person is shared between multiple projects and as per your current plan, if that resource is required between 15th of September to 30th of September, and if the resource is not available during that time in full, what you do is you change the start and end date with the availability of the resource, and keeping in mind that it does not affect the overall project completion date. Whereas resource smoothing is adjusting in such a manner that the requirement for the resource does not exceed a predetermined limit. This is basically like you have 8 hours per day, which is the standard office hours of a person. So you will book the person for 8 hours. What happens is sometimes resources, because of the activities, can be seen as being utilized for more than 8 hours, like 10 hours, 12 hours. Now in those cases what you do is you actually smooth the resource by reducing it to 8 hours and spilling it over to the next day. This what happens, the start and end date of the activities changes, and this might have effect on the overall project scenario. So you need to look at how you can do it, and that's why manual and automatic both together, a hybrid model is the best way of doing it. So you do a automatic if else analysis and then accordingly make necessary changes. We have looked at critical chain method, which we explained at the beginning of the session today. So it is aims at eliminating Parkinson's law and student syndrome. It also eliminates bottleneck that hold up the project progression. So in this method, deadlines associated with individual tasks are removed, and only date that matters is the promised due date of the project deliverable. So if it works to modify schedule based on availability of resource rather than pure sequence of activities. This method requires the discovery of the critical path and then applies available resource to determine the true resource limited schedule. And based on the availability of resource, critical path may be completely different than the CPM. And the method evaluates each activity's latest possible start and finish date, thus giving the project managers to manage buffer activity duration. So buffers can be added at the point where non-critical chain meets critical chain, called feeder buffers, and also at the end of project called project buffer. Buffers are then monitored for consumption. So once schedule is done, now that schedule has to be controlled. To monitor the status of the project activities, to update project progress, and to manage changes to the schedule baseline. So what are the inputs? So project management plan, project schedule, work performance data, project calendars, schedule data, and OPAs are your inputs. So how we do the controlling? We do performance reviews. So like weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, all those project reviews as per the project's communication plan, whatever we have decided, those we do the performance reviews and we document the data. So project management software is used to do that. Resource optimization techniques are used to take care of deviations and to bring projects back to track. Modeling techniques, leads and lags, schedule compression and scheduling tools are the tools and techniques. And what is the output? The work performance information, schedule forecast, change request, project management plan update, document updates, and OPA setup. OPA updates are your outputs.